We give thanks to all of the waters of the world for quenching our thirst, for providing strength and nurturing life for all beings. We know its power in many forms: waterfalls and rain, mists and streams, rivers and oceans, snow and ice. We are grateful that the waters are still here and meeting their responsibility to the rest of creation. Can we agree that water is important to our lives and bring our minds together as one to send greetings and thanks to the water? Now our minds are one.
Before all this knowledge is gone, we need to connect before that happens, because we're changing, our Indian people are changing, and we're trying to hang on, but, it's changed. I don't know what's going to be in 20 years from now.
Science education has to be grounded in this place. And who you are and where you come from has to be important in order for science to make sense.
There are colonial practices that are embedded in science. How can we move forward? Right? How can we grow as a science? How can we grow as a people?
The histories were all written by academics, and most of them are Eurocentric. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But to bring back the Native history and include it so it makes more sense for all groups of people, not just one, it's tying us back there.
Names carry weight. Names have meaning. Names have power.
My name is Reba Taran. My Indian name is Wongo Zaif, which means blue jay. And I'm a member of the Eastern Shoshone tribe of the Shoshone Nation.
My name is Crystal Reynolds. I work for the Northern Arapaho tribe. I am the tribal archaeologist.
I'm Dr. Dave Lovelace. I'm a research scientist at the University of Wisconsin's Geology Museum.
My name is Mark Roy. I'm the 7th and 8th grade science teacher at Fort Washakie Middle School on the Wind River Reservation.
I grew up here in Wyoming and actually lived here till I was about 14. And then I went to boarding school and I kind of flew the coop. And I didn't return until many years later. I only spoke Shoshone until I was 6. And I came here to Fort Washakie School and learned English. We were taught to learn English and not speak our language. Back in 2002, when I returned, I started working on our language, and then within about 6 years of hearing it, writing it, my language came back to me, and now I'm fluent in our language.
The Europeans really did exterminate us, you know. They did it with guns, and they did it with laws, and they did it with all kinds of censuses and regulations that confused who we were. They mixed us up with white people. They took away our language. They took our kids away to schools and wouldn't let them learn about the old culture. They herded us onto reservations and rewarded Indians who acted just like white people. They created a generation of Indians who didn't even know who they were.
Growing up in Wyoming, I grew up with these vast spaces, and interspersed with these vast spaces are the mountainous regions and lots of really cool geography. It's just the structures that you see there are beautiful and enthralling. And this is where I spent my childhood, and I loved picking up bones as a kid on the prairie, you know, putting together antelope skeletons and checking it out. It was awesome. And I think that was what was most captivating to me about science, but geology as well. Is all the stuff that I grew up with, all these mountains, these prairie lands, I could put together a story, an entire history by what I'm seeing. And it was powerful to me. It moved me in many ways, and it still does. And going anywhere in the world, it's something I can take with me. And I think that brings a level of appreciation for a territory, for a region, to understand its history and its deep history. And this goes back millions and millions of years.
In 1996, I received my master's degree in instructional technology from Utah State University. And at that time, I came home here to the Wind River Reservation, and I tried to find a job. But at that time, there was not even any jobs available. And so I left to Washington State. And while I was there, I worked with the cultural teacher of the Puyallup tribe. And what we ended up doing was working with the elder from the Squaxin Island tribe. She was one of the last speakers of the Quishutsi language, and we would record the language. After a year, I came back to Wyoming. Well, first was Montana, and I worked in that refinery in Laurel as a temporary worker. And so I would sit in there with my oily paper, and I would write Shoshone words. Then I thought, you know, what am I doing here? I need to use my knowledge to get this language recorded. And then just about that time, my council called me and told me that they would like me to work as a cultural director. And so that was the door that opened for me, and I came back home and started working. It's been a lifetime work for me.
What I do is paleontology, right? And so I go out and I interpret the rocks. I look at what the rocks tell us about the environment, what the conditions were like, what the climate was like, and then we look for any fossils, any information about what past life was. And the idea is that we're interpreting this, and then I pull all that information together and I try to weave a narrative, weave a story. So in effect, I'm a glorified storyteller, right? And this is kind of the fun of paleontology for me. It's what I love to do. In 2013, I made the first discovery, and that was an amazing find. And so we were able to excavate the entire skull of that animal. It was still preserved in the rock. And that began the journey. That was kind of like the spark. And so we started looking, and lo and behold, we found this little bone. And we're looking at it like, what's this? And one of my colleagues looks at it and goes, that's a dinosaur femur. I'm pretty sure that is a femur for sure. That's a dinosaur. And we're like, that's awesome. Oh my God, we were super excited, right? That piece itself was pretty spectacular because we have this dinosaur, and it happens to be the oldest dinosaur in Wyoming. That was 2013 and 2014 that we found these specimens. And then we started looking elsewhere. And over the next few years, we ended up finding 2 more localities that were amazing. And one of them includes these little amphibians that were found in burrows. And these amphibians, we found hundreds of burrows. And in those, we had almost every burrow that we found had a skeleton. That site was exceptional. It's a new critter. Our dinosaur is a new critter. And that kind of led us to a natural breaking point in our project. This kind of set the stage in my own growth as a scientist. And coming up with names, the first thing that passed through my head was pretty traditional naming techniques of, I'm going to honor a really good friend or a paleontologist who was meaningful to me. And that's kind of the norm.
Something that the tribes have been working on is reclaiming our lands. And that doesn't necessarily mean physically reclaiming them, but changing names of things, bringing back that native language and naming places and things as they used to be named to make our people feel back at home and reconnect to the culture that's still around us.
Names are really important in the Shoshone culture because they kind of show how everything relates to each other. So for instance, water, it is the most powerful element on our earth is water. Without it, we would die. But in a lot of our Shoshone words, water has possession. So the loon is called Bandesh, meaning water's brother-in-law. And then another example would be the Rocky Mountains here. We say Doyad and Bihavid, meaning mountains, rocks. It's like Mother Nature, our mountains are laying down.
Language is a core part of who we are as Indian people. Each of us has our respective languages that connect us to our place of birth, teach us how to pray, and show us who we are as Indian people. Language is sacred.
In the scientific world, a lot of the names in biology are all tracked in kind of what this hierarchy of kind of this colonial practice of using Greek and Latin, and then we'll Latinize things or give honorifics in species names to people. When the people who are creating the names are naming it after folks like them, you miss kind of the complexity and beauty and the power of names. And it becomes locked into one group or one ideal. And breaking out of that, I think, is really critical. And so realizing that we had the oldest dinosaur, potentially the oldest dinosaur in the world, probably not, but we'll find out. It's definitely the oldest one in Wyoming and probably the oldest in North America, we'll say that. But I wanted to use this as kind of a tool, right? This is a fossil. It's cool. It's important in my own career and my own research, but really that's not the goal. And this is where the project really shifted focus. It went from being, we've got these new fossils, let's name them and publish them, to let's take these fossils and use this to form a dialogue.
Dave contacted me, I believe it was January or February of 2021.
My first reaction to knowing that I was going to have a world-class paleontologist with a team of grad students come out and work in the field with my students, yeah, I was elated.
Today it feels good with this here. It's a good day. We're gonna go see the dinosaur. And we're going to name it. You are the visitors to the Ninimbis, the little peoples, to their land. Let's do it in a respectful way and just pay attention to what our teachers are going to teach you. So thank you for listening.
Students need to be engaged in science to recognize that it's something that's happening right here. Science is sometimes something that's out there, beyond their reach, or about them. An elder here, Alice Ferris, she was frustrated one day and she said, "Mark, we are the most studied and least understood people on the planet. And I don't want my students to be stuck in that." So having scientists come into my classroom is really important because my students need to see that scientists are concerned about them, are valuing the knowledge that their culture brings to the table, that they have a place. And in knowing that you have something to say opens knowledge up from local place to a global application. And only when they recognize that they have something valuable to say will they be able to step on the world stage and contribute some of this. But they've got to have the confidence that someone's going to listen. Walking out onto the Paposia Formation in a cloudy day that turned to snow, that turned to wind, that turned to rain, and then bust out with sun. All of these seventh graders who hadn't been out, some of them hadn't been outside, like even outside their homes. They were all of a sudden outside and loving it. And they were running around in the dirt like kids should be. And sometimes they paid attention to Dave Lovelace, who was giving them some incredible information. And some of them gathered in tight and fought to find some fossils and found their own fossils and found their own burrows and fully engaged. And some were still running around in the dirt, doing what middle school kids should do. They haven't had that opportunity. These guys have shared with you a lot about this place, both the way it was and the way it is now. And you've looked at it and played in it and put your fingers in it and slid down it and walked on it.
It's like kind of like cool that we get to see it. Like just being that old. Like see how the earth was before. Like way back then.
Kind of looked like one of those bones after you get done eating a chicken. It was cool. There's not a lot of schools get to name dinosaurs.
What is that again?
And so that's empowering. That's an example of how having a scientist in your room can empower students. And I really appreciate that Dave didn't just stop there, that I've had him twice come in through Zooms to revisit some of this. That field trip gave me an anchoring phenomenon for the study for this year's 8th graders and gave us something really specific to focus on, not just a fossil, but the fossil that was named in their language, that they got to touch and see. That's powerful.
Working with this Native community, the advice that I learned was the 4 R's, right? And so coming in with respect, right? You're working with, in this case, governmental bodies. So I reached out first to the Tribal Historic Preservation Office for both tribes. And they are a sovereign nation, and you want to treat them as such. So it'd be no different than me going to any country in the world or my own government. So treating people with respect was the first R. And the second was responsibility. We need to take responsibility for any information and any interactions that we have. Moreover, it's a relationship that we're building, right? And so the third R is the relationship. And too often, non-natives go into indigenous cultures and populations and they get more than they give. And so what I wanted to make sure is that there is a level of a long-term relationship. This is not just about going in and getting a name and trying to show gratuitous honor. It was really about building a relationship. That's what I want. And that's what this whole project evolved into. And yeah, we're using these fossils as a mechanism, as a means to start this dialogue. And reciprocity is the 4th R, and the idea is that things are balanced. As a non-native coming into this community, I shouldn't be getting more than them. And so my sincere goal is to be producing more benefit to the community than to our organization. But the small goal is to come up with a name that really in itself encapsulates what this animal is in the language of a people that have been around for a very long time. And this is their home. And I want this fossil to represent that. And I think it's going to be, hopefully, this beautiful relationship where over time we'll be able to all benefit as a global community. and bring awareness to kind of the history of science and how we've treated folks around the world.
It's been an amazing journey so far. I really appreciate all the information and the help. I think that I know I've grown. I won't be doing my work the same again after this. This has been really transformative for me. So I appreciate your time.
Because I believe we should give our little people credit.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't want to see Lewis get any more credit.
Yeah, exactly.
So Reva, if you want to go ahead and say the word a few times and explain it a little bit, it'll be recorded right here.
The first one that was written was Avetin Bandui Vici. Avet means long ago, and Bandui Vici means dinosaur. But the Bandui Vici is actually the word for salamander or water dog. And the first part, Ban, means water. Dui Vici means young, handsome man. And I used to wonder, I asked my sister, why did they call the salamander that? And she says, well, they're colorful. And so if you think about it, the salamander was a handsome creature. And so that's where the original word comes from. But now you've added long ago Bandui Vici. But then the second one is Ninambi Han Dukudika. And Ninambi means the little people. And Dukudika is the word for like a flesh eater. Duku is flesh. And eater is Duka. So Ninambi Han Dukudika. And I like that one because in this modern age, we need to honor our past. But back in the old days, they did honor their name. For instance, they called the Wind River Canyon Ninimbi Ogwe. That means little people's river. They were very powerful beings, and they live up in our mountains even today. So I think it's very good that we honor the Ninimbis.
The origin of the word Besiwat is more a descriptive word. It's not a definitive word. So Besiwat is a water monster. Its skin, the way its mouth is, kind of the whole makeup of the Rancosaur resembled a story that talked about a Besiwat. And so that's what they went with.
It's not that what I'm doing and what my colleagues and I and partners are doing is novel. It's just that the folks that have done it previously never really talked about it in a broad sense of why we should all be doing this. We're going out to the traditional and historical lands of these people, and we want them to be a part of the science. They have stories, they have connections that are far deeper and far more meaningful than anything that I'll ever have. Now, where we're going with this is, they are part of our research team, and I've had to work with editorial boards to make sure that the authors that we are including are actually accepted, and it's something that we've had to fight for. But that's the point. These folks are worth fighting for. This is important. It's not just this partnership, but it's what it represents. And the animals that we're naming, whether it's Shoshone or Arapaho, we're naming it in a language that has not been given the honor or attention that it deserves. And their history and the places that we're talking about those are important, and we need to discuss that in our science.
To give that dinosaur a name, that's very, very respectful for you to do. So I think that's really good for having a modern connection to our people here. Because, like they say, we've been here for a long, long time, So it's a big honor.
Every time you guys are out here, if we can just get maybe an elder or two out or bring a group of kids out and continue to build that partnership, because every time we get people out on the ground with the actual scientists, more things come out. Elders go home and they talk to their friends and they talk about oral histories, and the kids just get excited about it. But that partnership of just building that trust between the two, between the tribe and the schools. Every year you do a project, there's something more that comes.
Certainly, through this partnership, I've grown immensely. My students have grown immensely. And I think it's changed the way that I see science, and it's certainly changed the way that I do science. We've started a dialogue, and we've started the story. We don't know where the story's going to end, but that's it. We want to build it and see where it goes. And the more people that can tell this story, the bigger it's going to be and the more impact it's going to have on our sciences and on our communities and on us as a people.
Naming the Bessiwat is bringing back a little piece of that Native history to that place. It's tying us back there to where that connection, I wouldn't say it was lost, but it hasn't been kept alive either. And so when we bring that Native language back to it, it just helps revive it and bring it back to life, especially for Native groups.